Hi, this is Howard Tiersky, CEO of Moving Interactive, with another installment in our Digital Innovation Series. Today's topic, mapping and optimizing the customer lifecycle. In a previous video, we talked about techniques for segmenting your customers, defining the key dimensions that distinguish different customer types to help you both create a digital experience that is optimized for the full breadth of your customers, as well as to identify when it makes sense to create customized experiences for different types of users. But today, we'll focus on a different dimension of customer diversity, which is where a given customer is in the customer lifecycle. Customers go through a journey from never having heard of your brand to considering buying from you to eventually, hopefully, being not only a customer but an advocate. Along the way, customers go through a number of distinct steps which we find valuable to map out for a given business when we go about the process of conceiving and developing digital products. Why would we want to do this? Well, in general, success will correlate with successfully moving customers through these distinct phases of awareness, consideration, purchase, and beyond. At each point, there is an opportunity to help the customer move forward and to optimize the value we receive from the customer in that stage, whether it's getting their email address, an initial purchase, or a lifetime of customer loyalty. But what the customer needs, what will persuade them to move forward in that sequence, differs based on where they are in that customer life cycle at that point in time. So let's take an example. My team and I did a lot of work with one of the world's largest automakers on how to improve their digital customer experience. As part of that, we looked closely at the different needs customers have at different buying stages. So, for example, when you're buying a car, you may have an early stage where you're really trying to figure out what type of car you want. Do you want a convertible, a four-door, which is like a hybrid or an electric car? Do you need four-wheel drive? You're trying to define your core requirements. At that stage, if I hit you with an offer that says you can get a 0% financing offer on this specific model if you buy in the next 5 days, it's kind of out of alignment. So is a tool to visualize paint and upholstery colors. You're not ready for that kind of stuff. You haven't decided what you want yet. Once a buyer determines their needs, they then determine what vehicles are out there in the market that fall within their criteria. Perhaps one from Ford, one from Toyota, one from Hyundai, etc. At that point, they may go for a few test drives. Then, when they decide, okay, I want to buy a Ford Mustang, they have another stage in which they're going to decide what packages and options, what colors, upholstery, etc. And once they have determined those things, often customers, they then need to figure out where they're going to buy the car, from which Ford dealer. At that point, they may shop around strictly for price amongst different dealers. And at that stage, they may also be very open to hearing about that short window offer for great financing we talked about earlier. And now that, of course, isn't really the end of the life cycle, because, of course, then you get the car and you might choose to buy an extended warranty or later determine to bring it back to your dealer for servicing and repair and so on. So if we want to maximally support and add value to our customers' experience, and we want to optimize our own value creation, it's important to understand these steps that customers go through and ideally determine where a given customer is at a moment in time so we can interact with them in the best way possible. Now, of course, like any model, all customers won't march through these steps in exactly the same way. Some may start already knowing what kind of car they want. Some customers may entirely skip steps. For example, being aware of the typical life cycle might lead an auto dealer to figure out how to plant seeds early in the process so many of their customers entirely skip the step of shopping around to different dealerships for the best price. So that's why it's useful to have the customer life cycle mapped out for your business when you undertake to create innovative new digital products. When looking for opportunities to add value to customers, you can then consider the different needs customers have at different stages of the life cycle. And when looking to promote a particular capability or message, you can consider in which stages of the life cycle is it most useful, and if possible, target it to the customers that are in those stages. So in today's video, we're going to introduce what we call the BASE framework for customer lifecycle mapping. We call it the BASE framework because the typical journey is not the same for all products and businesses. For example, the way a B2B customer searches for and ultimately selects a new accounting firm is fairly different from how households buy toilet paper. In fact, the way households and businesses buy toilet paper have important differences. So when we at Moving Interactive work with clients, we ultimately look to define the profile of the customer journey that is tuned to their business and the buying process of their customers. However, we don't start with a blank slate. We start with the base framework, which we will walk through today. From there, we consider if all the steps in the life cycle are relevant to a given scenario. Perhaps they are, or perhaps some are so interconnected that they can be combined. Or perhaps in your business there are a few important steps that are unique and not represented in our base framework. For example, in the insurance industry, the incidence of a claim is a hugely important life cycle step that can make or break the future customer relationship. But you might not have that parallel in your business. But it's also quite possible that you can map your full customer life cycle by simply tweaking from what we'll review here. Okay, so in our base framework, we have 4 mega steps, each of which is broken into a number of smaller steps. The 4 mega steps are labeled pre-shopping, shopping, buying, and using. So we'll walk through these steps, and in each, we'll look at 5 key things. Number 1, what defines the step? Number 2, what are the customer's goals in this step? What behaviors do we typically see? Number 3, what types of messages or tools are most helpful? Number 4, what are the risks and opportunities in this step? And number 5, how do we know when the step is over, when the customer has graduated to the next step? So let's dive in on pre-shopping. We break pre-shopping into 2 steps, awareness and activation. Awareness. In this stage, customers don't necessarily have any idea who you are, or they may have a vague idea. They usually have no goal as it relates to your products or services. In order to gain their attention, we must interrupt some other activity that they are engaged in. Typically, our goal in this stage is to plant a seed, so that at some point in the future, when our product is aligned with their needs, we will be top of mind, or at least recognized if presented, such as at a retail store. Brand advertising is probably the most common example of awareness marketing, and it can be in broadcast, print, sponsorship, outdoor, or digital. What's really essential for success in this step is to figure out a way to break through the clutter of messages that bombard everyone all the time. Your prospect isn't really looking for you at this stage, so if you want them to remember you, you have to find a way to be memorable. Awareness can dovetail into the second step of pre-shopping, which we call activation. Activation is that turning point where a customer is now starting to consider the possibility of a purchase of some sort. Maybe not with you, but there is some kind of identified potential need. There's really 3 ways to connect with a prospect at this point of activation. 1 is to have created a strong enough awareness in the prior stage that when the prospect at some future point enters the stage of activation, they think of and seek out you. The second way is to have your awareness advertising also provide activation. In other words, not just create awareness, but also spark a need so that you actually push the customer into activation. The customer may have had no sense that they needed breath spray, but your advertisement not only made them aware of your product, but also got them worried that maybe their breath smells. This is great if you can do it, because you are automatically at the right place at the right time since you created the need. Some types of products work well with the right customer. Life insurance, for example. If you're underinsured, the right communication can spark the need. But it's not always going to work. If you have plenty of insurance, the commercial can still create brand awareness so that a year later, when you have a child and your needs increase, perhaps you remember the brand if it was memorable. But it can't create that need if you don't need it. And for some other products, this really just doesn't work under any circumstances. With cars, for example, it's difficult to create a need. Usually you have to wait until someone's lease is up or their needs or means change to put them in the market. A third way to connect with a customer at this point of activation is to be easily findable through a customer's natural research process. A customer in this stage is trying to find out if there is a solution for the need they have, to understand what's available. They may ask around, people they know, search for recommendation. Very often they conduct an internet search. So good word of mouth and strong search engine optimization and search engine marketing are key tactics at this stage. So what do we want from customers once we have them at our doorstep in the activation stage? Well, in a perfect world, we still want them to buy. But often customers in this stage are not really ready to buy. They don't understand the options that are available to them in the market. So even if you put the perfect offer at the right price in front of them, they may not be able to assess it. Assuming you can't sell them, the most important thing you can get from a customer at this point is their contact information. In the digital world, we want their email address or a connection to us via social media, combined with their opt-in or permission for ongoing marketing. This is essential because what is likely to happen is that this customer will continue into the shopping stage, which we'll discuss next, and as they increase their readiness to purchase over time, you want the ability to pop up in front of them with a reminder of your value proposition. Customers have left the activation stage when they have started to actively shop, looking at different products or services from different providers. So the second mega step is the shopping stage, which we break into 4 steps. Step 1 is gathering. This is the point at which the customer understands that a category exists for, let's say, website hosting, and they're starting to get that there are different providers at different price points, and they want to understand the range of what's out there. If they arrive at your doorstep in this stage, they basically want to know, okay, what do you have? What's your story? The key thing here is to be able to give a customer the big picture in a fashion they can understand. At this point, they may not have a depth of knowledge to understand the difference between your private virtual cloud hosting and your competitor's shared cloud. You need to offer them a high-level story of the strengths of your offering and perhaps how it compares with others they may see in the market. There are many ways to do this. A video can be a good tool to provide a quick and engaging overview of your offering. A strong infographic or series of them can also be an effective approach. If a customer is asking more detailed questions at this point, then congratulations, you have moved them to the next stage, which we call interest. In the interest stage of shopping, the customer probably has some questions that relate to their specific situation. You have presumably persuaded them that your big picture offer is strong enough to be worthy of more detailed consideration. At this point, you have an opportunity to really learn something about this prospect based on what they want to know. Some customers may ask detailed technical questions. Others may have simplistic questions that reveal that they are still grasping the nature of your offering itself. The questions a customer asks give you insight into what they care about. The range of topics can be broad, but will often fall into these key categories. 1, features. What does your product do and not do? 2, compatibility, not just for technology. Can this car be used to tow my boat? 3, logistics. How does it get delivered, installed? How long does it take? 4, availability. 5, price, and not just the base price, but add-ons, ongoing fees, etc. 6, terms, warranty, guarantee, shipping, delivery, other charges. And lastly, and increasingly, social impact. Is your product green? Where is it produced? Fair trade considerations, and other social factors. At minimum, you want to have an FAQ of some sort to help the user find answers to the specific questions that are important to them. A more sophisticated approach might include a guided selling module that profiles the customer's specific needs and concerns and proactively provides more detailed information in the areas that are most relevant to them. Since it can be difficult to cover all the scenarios that a customer might care about, is this product gluten-free? Chat can be a helpful tool at this stage of the process, combined with a rich knowledge base which your chat representatives can access. Strong site search is another important tool at this point. Okay, so your customer has gone through gathering and interest. 2 stages of shopping are left: product comparison and price comparison. In product comparison, a customer has generally pulled together detail from the gathering and interest stages about a number of products and is now trying to weigh them against each other and narrow the field down to one. This bank provides free checking, but this one is open on Saturdays. One has more ATMs, but the other doesn't charge you to use a competitor's cash machines. Many products have many factors, so this can be a complex task. While a customer might simply eliminate options that are outside their price range, typically price is not yet the deciding factor. Rather, the goal is to determine which product has the best fit. At this stage, many users will leverage online reviews. They have narrowed down to a few choices, so this becomes practical. Web comparison tools that show how your product stacks up against those they are likely comparing to can also be very helpful. The last stage of shopping is price comparison. This is separated from product comparison because it's common for customers to decide more or less what they want to purchase and then figure out where they can get at the best price, at least for certain products and services. At this stage, customers may use tools like Frugal or other comparison engines. They may check the websites of major retailers like Amazon and Best Buy. They may use sites that gather quotes from different providers like Esurance, Bankrate for mortgages, or Auto Buy Tell for cars. It's also possible that a customer may move to price comparison with multiple products in their selection set if they have determined that the product is a commodity or there are multiple competing products which are almost identical in terms of benefit, though this often reflects a failure of any individual product to sufficiently differentiate itself. This is also a point in time customers are very receptive to offers, coupons, promo codes, free shipping, extra oil changes, anything that can sweeten the deal. Emphasizing guarantees and warranties is also persuasive at this stage. The customer has completed the shopping process when they have selected what they want to buy and from who. The next mega step, then, is the buying process, taking the customer from intention through the actual transaction. We divide the buying process into two steps: configuration and transaction. Configuration is making any decisions about the final form of the product or service. Do you want fries with that? In the case of a car, it might include color, package, or type of financing. In the case of an iPod, it might be whether or not to take the extended warranty or to buy an extra charger. Configuration is an opportunity to increase the size of the sale, as well as to make sure the customer has the product set up in a way such as to optimize their satisfaction. However, it also has the risk that we can potentially send a customer backwards into shopping. Oh yes, customers can move backwards as well as forwards through a customer life cycle. Have you ever been about to make a purchase only to learn something as part of the finalization of the transaction that sends you back to your research? Once the customer has made all the decisions about the choice, warranties, shipping, colors, whatever, they have completed the configuration and are ready for the final step of buying, transaction completion. Completing a transaction may be very simple for some situations and complex in others. When buying a pack of gum, it generally involves handing over a few bucks and getting back some change. Closing a mortgage, on the other hand, is a bit more of an ordeal with more opportunities for issues and setbacks. In business deals, completing and signing a contract or other deal documentation often involves extended terms and conditions and requires extensive negotiation. For online transactions, consider the tender you accept. Offering choices like PayPal and Bill Me Later can increase conversion. Consider also if the currencies you accept are sufficient, especially if your audience is multinational. Fees on foreign currency transactions can be high on credit cards and discourage people in other countries from completing a transaction. Okay, so you have completed the transaction. Congratulations, your customer has now moved into the fourth mega step, using. This is the experience of your product or service. We break using into, don't get scared, 6 steps, but we'll move through them quickly, I promise. The first step of using is what we call fulfillment delay. This is the time from when the customer completes the transaction to when they begin use of your service or receive your product. Sometimes this gap does not exist, but often it does. During this period, customers often have a lot of anticipation. What can we do? What can you do during this phase to keep a customer satisfied? Perhaps queue them up for an improved experience when they receive your product. Even leverage this period of enthusiasm for cross-sell opportunities. Also bear in mind that there is still some risk during this period. If your product is returnable or your contract cancelable, there is still the risk that something will happen to cause the customer to reverse their decision. So probably our most important objective during this phase is to make sure the customer stays the course. The second step of using is what we call initiation. This is when your customer is first introduced to their experience of your product. Sure, they've seen it as part of the sales process, but now they have their very own. Or they are logging into their online banking account for the very first time. This is a special moment and an opportunity to bond with the customer and start this phase of the relationship off in the right way. Whether it's the meticulous packaging of an iPhone or the creative kickoff workshops that we here at Moving Interactive often do at the start of a new project, this phase lays the groundwork for a future relationship. This is also a stage where customers may require extra support if your product requires assembly or learning in order to be fully utilized. Think about how you are making that as easy as possible. Customers often also go into new purchases, especially significant ones, with high expectations. There is a risk at this stage of disappointment if your product or service does not match the expectations that you or your salespeople created, or those that your customer created in his or her own mind. So it's important to think about how you manage that relationship to work through any gaps in expectations during this step. Online tools which help customers in their initiation of a product can include assembly videos, tutorials, communities of novice and more advanced users answering each other's questions, and chat or other online support tools. Following initiation, we have early use. At this point, the customer has gotten accustomed to using the product and probably got past some of its novelty or newness as well. And it's at that point the customer really determines if the product is a true fit for them. When you first get a new tablet computer, you make a point of using it for the first few days or maybe a week, but after a while, if it really isn't gelling for you, if it's more trouble to bring it along than it's worth, or if for some reason it just doesn't fit into your life, you start leaving it home, on the desk, then in the drawer, or in the opposite case, this is the stage when you really figure out how to make the product work for you on a day-to-day basis. This is the stage where the customer should start to see real value from using the product or service. Think about how to continue to support your customers through this stage to help them reach that point where their use of your product is truly self-perpetuating. Okay, the third step of use we'll talk about is advocacy. This is the point where your customers are glowing about your product and telling their friends. While advocacy can happen anywhere in the process, even before the purchase, most often it happens after a customer has had a chance to use the product for long enough to get through at least some early use and determine that the product really works as advertised, and they want to share that goodness with their friends via Facebook or at a cocktail party or what have you. Needless to say, this stage does not always occur. You have to earn it through the quality of your offering and by establishing the right relationship with the customer. The fourth step of use we call middle use. This is usually the longest stage, lasting almost the full useful life of the product or service. It spans from the end of early use, when the customers really got the product working as part of their day-to-day life, to late use, which is when the product starts to break down or become obsolete and it's time to think about a possible replacement. During middle use, customers may need the least help and support. However, it can be an opportunity to sell supplies, provide maintenance services, or leverage the strength of your relationship to offer other products to that customer. Also, customers' needs sometimes change during the long period of middle use, creating situations where they may benefit from using your product in a different way. All of a sudden, a 10-year user of a credit card travels internationally for the first time. They may have some new questions and need some types of support that have never come up before. These situations are opportunities to both continue to prove the strength of your offering, as well as to potentially identify up or cross-sell opportunities. The other scenario that can occur during middle use is, of course, breakage, stimulating repair or possible replacement. These are obviously additional revenue opportunities. One of the risks of middle use is competitive replacement threat. Since middle use is often years long, during that period, your competitors may come out with new products superior to the one you sold the customer. You may come out with new products superior to the one you sold the customer. Now, depending on the business model of your product, this threat and the strategies to adapt to it can vary. Certainly, it's the greatest threat if you have a subscription-type business model, such as software as a service or banking. You want to be mindful of the competitive market and consider when there are times that you'll want to proactively address those types of competitive threats. Okay, we have reached the last stage of use, the end of our base model, what we call late use and replacement. In late use, the product is starting to show its age, perhaps starting to break down and need more maintenance, or is becoming obsolete. Obviously, the time it takes for this to occur will vary greatly. A smartphone seems to reach late use in 2 years or less. A toaster may take a decade or more. During this stage, there can be substantial revenue opportunities. For example, maintaining physical equipment that is in the later stages of its life, probably past its warranty period. As a product becomes obsolete, new compatibility issues may arise, which require support or upgrades. At the same time, there is clearly an ever-increasing risk/opportunity associated with competitive replacement. Think about how you can work with your customer during this phase to support them during the late stage of use, and then shepherd them into renewal within your product line. This is a great time to market your next generation and to emphasize the smooth transition they will have by staying with the same brand. Okay, phew. Well, that's our base model. A lot of information, in a way, and in another, still kind of high level. We could easily do a whole video on each of those steps. But hopefully this level of detail gives you at least a flavor of it and serves as a jumping off point. I'm sure as we went through these steps, you could start to see how you need to tailor it a bit for your customers' buying and product experience and process, whether you're a retailer, a bank, a consumer electronics manufacturer, a chimney sweep, a haberdashery, or something else. Once you've mapped out your life cycle, I suggest you think about the messages, content, and tools you provide to customers and whether you're meeting their needs at each stage, and whether or how you are targeting specific tactics towards customers depending on what stage of the life cycle they're in. If you aren't totally perfect, that's great. It means you have opportunities to impact your business results through some combination of optimizing or innovating the ways you support your customers through their life cycle. Okay, that's all on this topic for today. As always, we are happy to chat one-on-one with you if we can be of any help around how you implement this type of approach in your business. Contact info is at our website, movinginteractive.com, or reach out to us on any of our social media touchpoints. There's like a dozen of them, all the usual suspects. Or I won't tell your kids if you just want to email us. That's fine too. You can reach us at info@movinginteractive.com. And thanks, by the way, for all the feedback we've gotten on this digital innovation series and all the great ideas for new topics. We promise to keep making them if you promise to keep watching them. Deal? Well, for now, this is Howard Tiersky, CEO of Moving Interactive, wishing you tremendous success in all your digital innovations.